Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my new video. So we've all seen the videos of protesters, violent protesters, all across France. The police officers in France are basically beating up anyone they can see, completely disregarding any human rights. People are setting fire to the town halls and vehicles, the streets of Paris absolutely closed. You can imagine the amount of money that Paris and France is losing because of these protests. And don't forget, the whole world is also watching as well. So the question I have for this video is, why are the British so quiet? So I'm telling you this because the British have it significantly worse than what the French have got it. First of all, the British pension age is has been increased to 67, and the French are protesting because their pension age has increased from 62 to 64. In Britain, they've increased it to 67. Not only that, it gets much worse, guys. The pension you get paid in Britain is the lowest anywhere in Europe, absolutely lowest. And there's a lot of pensioners who have got their pensions still living in poverty. And forget the pension side on put that to one side. I think everybody can agree on that life generally is getting worse in Britain. Costs are spiraling through the roof in terms of inflation, and bills are increasing, mortgage rates are increasing, taxes increasing. So the life in general is getting worse. More and more people are going into poverty, and things are getting much worse in Britain. So why is Britain not protesting? And I'm not here advocating for violent protests here, but guys, I'm totally against violence and violent protests. I'm talking about peaceful protests. We don't even see peaceful protests anymore in Britain. I mean, I don't know what's going on. I remember back in the day when the poll tax was introduced, and people in Britain protested and they brought down Thatcher at the time. And I remember when Britain wanted to go into Iraq war, and there was millions and millions of protests in central London trying to stop it. Obviously, it didn't work, but the fact is there were millions in the streets who have been proved right to this day. Um, Sometimes it's okay to protest. Even if it doesn't have to be violent or anything. It can be peaceful, because if you look throughout history, a lot of protests have you know, come about, made a lot of changes into people's lives. Like protests have made changes to women's lives, even LGBTQ people as well recently, and Black Lives Matter, for example. The protests do change um, governments, the way they handle things in life. If people don't protest, it basically gives a free pass to the government to do whatever the hell they want. And this is the problem in Britain, because people are not protesting, because people are not saying anything. The government is going ahead doing whatever the hell they want. They are increasing the taxes. The inflation's going beyond crazy. They're not increasing any wages. Wages have not increased for 20 years. The only people who are kind of protesting are kind of people that are going on strike. Um, you know, Climate change protests going on, but nobody is actually protesting about the real issues here. So a few days ago, Netanyahu came to UK to greet Rishi Sunak and Braverman. They were taking loads of pictures together. They were like really huggy, lovey, touchy kind of relationship. And again, Britain has completely is supporting Netanyahu and everything that he stands for, which is absolutely disgusting. I mean, this guy, he's not even popular in his own country. Don't forget all of the war crimes he's been doing or did, in Palestine as well. So you see, things are really, really bad here. But the main issue I wanted to kind of talk about is the fact that nobody is protesting because of the way UK is handling this special military operation in Ukraine. First of all, Britain is the number one country escalating this fight, and they're escalating. They were the first country to send tanks. They want to be the first country to send uranium depleted uranium shells, and they were the country which stopped Zelensky having peace talks when Boris flew over to Ukraine. Britain is doing everything it can to escalate this conflict, and it doesn't care about rest of Europe. If the rest of Europe is starving because they don't have access to cheap gas anymore, Britain's got gas from its northern sea, from the North Sea. They can get gas from there. Obviously, they still have to import a lot of gas, but Britain doesn't really think long term. The people in Britain are really suffering, because of the inflation. This has all caused the huge amount of suffering this is causing to Britain. Plus, don't forget the added benefits of Brexit and the added benefit of all of the COVID money printing as well. It really has shattered the UK economy. Yet nobody is going out there protesting the fact that what the hell is this bloody government doing? I mean, I remember back in the day when Jacques Chirac stood up against George Bush and said, you know what, I don't believe a word that you guys are saying. I'm totally against this war against Iraq. And he's been proved right. Why don't we have people who are kind of standing up for what's right now? I mean, right now the media is completely on Ukraine side. It's like a one way street. But if people start protesting out in the street, like no to NATO, or basically no to supporting Ukraine, we want to be neutral, stop sending weapons, reverse all of the sanctions. If people start doing that, then maybe, just maybe, Britain might be in a better state. But because people are not doing that, Britain is basically doing whatever the hell it wants. It's inviting war criminals like this guy, shaking hands with him, being absolute hypocrites when it comes to, human rights and genocide, which is going on in Palestine. And here you have Palestinians trying to fight for their own land and freedom. And it's one rule for them, but when Ukraine does it, it's okay. But it's not okay for people in Palestine. I'm also talking about Syria as well. People in Syria to fight back against US occupation. It's not okay for them to do it, to fight back, but it's okay for Ukraine to do it. Again, Britain is going down the wrong paths again, and history history will judge UK. And I remember, you know, 20 years ago when the whole world was going for this war in Iraq. And I gotta say, the British media, they were proper. I remember reading a lot of articles and they were proper for it, for the Iraq war. They were all saying, oh, what a tyrannical regime this guy Saddam is. He's like Hitler. He needs to be taken care of. They were talking about you know, basically he can fire weapons within 45 minutes they would reach British shores. They were coming up with all sorts of bullshit. The government, the media, they were loving this war that was about to start in Iraq. Now you have 20 years later, all these papers are now just trying to pretend that they're the good guys. They're saying, "Oh, the 20 years war in Iraq. Maybe in hindsight, it was never a good thing to be." And now they're blaming Bush. Now they're blaming Bush and all these hawks in the United States, Donald Rumsfeld and Colin Powell. None of them are blaming Blair. None of them, not one paper is putting Blair's face in front of the front page and said this guy is a war criminal, needs to be charged, need to be tried in the ICC. None of that. All the papers are now saying, yeah, 20 years ago, Iraq war, and you're going to see 20 years later, you're going to see the same headlines saying, oh, Britain should not have um, supported the Ukraine, the neo-Nazi regime in Ukraine. Britain was fooled into supporting the neo-Nazis. We gave them all this money and weapons, and history has proven that Russia was right and Russia did the right thing. Blah blah blah. But 20 years later, it's too late. It's too late by then. This is now. This is how the media and the government work now. They are completely brainwashing everyone. So it goes back to my question, really. Why are the British so quiet? Why is nobody making a sound? Why is there's nobody in the streets? And I'm not talking about a few hundred here and there. Obviously, there are a few protests, few hundred people here or there. I'm talking about protesting like you see protests in France right now, where there's 3 million people protesting. I mean, not all of them are violent. Obviously, the violence goes both ways. The police are being violent in France, not just the protesters. If the police start being violent, then obviously the protesters are going to be violent. So, you got to be peaceful on both sides. So, where are the millions of people in Great Britain out in the streets? Nobody. Nobody will do it. So you have to ask yourself why? Why are British people being taken for fools and being taken for a ride? Number one, are they stupid? Are they stupid? The government keeps taking away more and more of their dinner, more and more of their lunch, and they just sitting there taking it? Or are they really, really brainwashed? Is the government and the media did such a great job with their media of brainwashing the general public? The general public just sit there and take it and think everything is fine. Is that what it is? The truth is, I just don't know, guys. I don't have the right answer. And yeah, maybe a bit of both, bit of other things as well. Maybe a lot of stupid people are in Britain. Maybe people don't have the ability to think for themselves. Maybe people have been kicked for so long, for so many years, they just used to it. They feel like protesting is not going to make any difference. Maybe they are brainwashed to an extent that they feel that the government cannot do any wrong. It could be all of those things. Who knows? Or maybe just British people just don't care. The British people are very different from the rest of Europe. They love to have they love to work 9 to 5, then later on go to the pub and drink and watch football. They don't really care about politics. They don't want to be involved in politics, and maybe that's the problem as well. Um, social media. Social media is a heavy influence of people. Social media has been influencing a lot of people. Um, or maybe British people don't have the time. Maybe they're just working 2 or 3 jobs, like most people do here, trying to make ends meet, and they haven't got time to protest. Maybe they haven't got time to go out in the streets because they are working like absolute slaves, working like absolute dogs, just to make ends meet, just to put some food on the table, to pay the bills and pay some food. Maybe that's the issue. Who knows? Let me know what your thoughts are, guys. So now I'm coming to the second video of the day. And the second video of the day is Biden sending warning to Iran. So first of all, everybody knows that the United States is illegally occupying Syria, stealing its oil, and he has been doing that for years now. And even Trump came on record in front of national television and he said, "We're there for the oil, we're taking the oil." And this was way back in the Trump years ago. And they're still doing that. And Biden has just come on and he's threatening Iran because somebody has sent drone attacks to the US base, killed one US contractor and injured some US servicemen. And there's been a number of drone attacks recently in the last few days. So the fact is they are illegally occupying Syria. They are there to steal the oil. And there's no sovereignty to Syrians whatsoever. It's absolutely hilarious how they treat Ukraine with how they treat Syria. Here you have Ukraine, and here you have the West and the administration of United States telling the world, Russia is violating sovereign rights of Ukraine. They have invaded Ukraine, blah blah blah. When the United States is doing exactly the same thing to Syria and stealing its oil. I mean, can you see the double standards here? Can you see why the global South and the Middle Easterns do not trust anything that comes out of the United States? Can you see why countries like Saudi Arabia, UAE, other countries are pulling away from United States? Can you see the double standards? The people have had enough. Absolutely had enough. Here you have American troops illegally in Syria, you know, and it's fair game to the Syrians then, isn't it? They're basically fighting for the country. It's the same reasons Ukrainians are fighting for the country, according to the West. So what's the difference? The difference is Ukraine is full of white people and Syrians full of Arabs, which the West doesn't really care about. Or am I saying that too loud? Do Arabs' lives not matter? Syrians are not allowed to have their own sovereignty, their own oil to build up the economy? I mean, seriously, the double standards. And now you have Biden basically threatening Iran. I mean, come on. USA is going to do jack shit to Iran. Jack shit. They can't invade Iran. They're too busy focusing on China and Russia. They haven't got no time for Iran. If USA go to another war against Iran, that's going to take another 20 years or so. And Iran's going to be a much more difficult um, war. I can tell you that now because when they went into Iraq, Iraq literally had no weapons, nothing. Iraq, basically was disarming itself after the first Gulf War. Since then, Iraq has been disarming itself, got rid of all of its weapons, hardly had anything to defend itself, and it was an easy war for United States to go into Iraq. It was very easy for them. Obviously, it wasn't that easy because they lost a lot of lives and lost a lot of money. But imagine how much more harder it's going to be when they go against Iran. It's a much bigger country. The terrain is more difficult. Iran has been arming itself for 20, 30, 40 years. Is found ways to develop its own military, can build its own missiles, drones. It's going to be a lot more difficult, you know, fish to bite. I can tell you that now. And not only that, Iran has proxies all across the Middle East. They've got proxies in Syria, got proxies in Yemen, Iraq, and many other places. They would make life very, very difficult for the United States and for Israel. And I'm pretty sure they also have a nuclear weapon as well, which they're probably not going to announce. They're probably going to keep a secret, the same way Israel is keeping it secret. They always say, "Oh, Iran is another couple of months away from a nuclear bomb, a couple of months away from a nuclear bomb." The inspectors are out of, they're pretty much out of Iran. I mean, since Trump threw away um, threw away that JCPOA back then, I'm pretty sure Iran has got every capability of it, to make to make a bomb. And why shouldn't they? You know, you, the geopolitics has shown us that if you're a country and you've got nuclear weapons, then you're safe. Look at North Korea. If North Korea didn't have nuclear weapons, they would have been invaded by South Korea years ago and the United States. If you've got nuclear weapons, they're scared of you. They don't go anywhere near you. So that's the message that's been taught around the world. If you get rid of your nuclear weapons, you get invaded. Guess what? Libya decided to get rid of its nuclear weapons program for relief with sanctions. And guess what happened a few years later? Libya got bombed and Gaddafi got killed. If Libya had nuclear weapons, I guarantee you they would not go anywhere near Libya. So that's the message the West is telling the world. If you've got nuclear weapons, you will leave you alone. If you don't, then we'll invade you. Anyway, USA has not got there's no way in hell they would go into Iran. No way in hell. The economy is not doing good. Probably going to have a recession sometime this year. Banks are collapsing everywhere. People in United States are suffering from inflation, poverty, homelessness. Do you really think United States will go to another war in the Middle East? They left the Middle East. They left Afghanistan. They didn't want to get involved in the Middle East anymore. Their focus is on China and on Russia. Right now on Russia, but their main focus is on China long term. They know if they get dragged into a war with Iran, they can kiss goodbye, you know, USA becoming the number one economy of the world. Because imagine how much money you're going to have to spend to go to a war with Iran. It's going to be 3, 4 times as much as they went into Iraq. USA does not have that kind of money. They'll go bankrupt, absolutely bankrupt. It's because USA's war with Iraq. This is why China has got so powerful, because USA has been so focused on the Middle East, fighting Iraq, fighting Afghanistan, fighting jihadis, ISIS, yeah, and they've forgotten about China. And now they look at China and think, "Oh bloody hell, we dropped the ball here. Look how powerful they've gone." Same thing will happen if they go after Iran, and there's no guarantee they will win. History has shown that USA cannot last a war in the Middle East. If you kill enough American soldiers, and if you bleed them enough when it comes to money, they will leave. They're not there for the long term. They'll only stay until the next president comes along and he pulls the troops out. That's what's going to happen. They're only there if the people want them to be there. Sooner or later, as soon as the body bag starts coming home, as soon as the cost of living crisis gets even worse, the American people are not going to stand for it. They're going to want these troops to come back home, and the next president will come back in, and he'll be like, "Oh, I'm pulling the troops out." And that's how the American government works. There is no way they can go into Iran or win against Iran. Iran will make it very, very difficult for them. And if they do go against Iran, then Russia's going to be, rubbing their hands with glee. China's going to be rubbing their hands with glee, because USA is not going to be able to support Ukraine anymore, because they're going to be focused on Iran. They're not going to have time to give Ukraine any more money or any more weapons. And that's it. Ukraine will collapse. It's absolutely impossible for them to go into Iran. Absolutely impossible. So I don't know what Biden is on about here. So I'm going to come to the idiot of the day section, and the idiot of the day goes to Schultz. And do you remember when I was making the fun out of Schultz and I was comparing him to a cuckold? And basically, a cuckold is somebody who sits at home and is a very, very weak man. I'm not going to say the complete, you'll have to Google it, but everybody knows Mr. Schultz here has literally no spine whatsoever. Literally no spine. He allows himself to be taken for a ride. He's destroying the German people's livelihoods just so he can be a good puppet to Biden and the West. And I'm sorry, but I can't have any nice words to say about this man. And this is happening while Germany is suffering the worst, even as bad as UK, probably even more, because there's nationwide strikes in Germany at the moment. The whole country is on standstill at the moment. All of this is going on while they are sending German tanks into Ukraine. And I believe the first batch or the second batch of German tanks have just arrived in Ukraine today, this morning, while the whole economy is suffering in Germany. So I've got no. For me to call this guy a cuckold is probably one of his nicest. It's probably a compliment for him. I'm sure there's other people out there who will absolutely rinse him. And I've seen a video of Garland Nixon absolutely rinsing this guy, and he deserves it. He deserves it. People like him, people like Boris Johnson, Rishi Sunak, Trudeau, and I'm sure there's many other puppet leaders out there who are absolutely got no spine, no dignity, no common sense. They'd rather destroy their own people than to have a little bit of a brain to think for themselves. I have absolutely zero respect for this guy, zero respect. And I remember that video I showed you on Twitter where he was meeting Biden, and he looked like an absolute man who had no dignity, self respect, or a little bit of a spine to stand up for himself. He was just sitting there nodding and agreeing to everything Biden was saying. His whole body language felt like he was some sort of puppet with some person with strings, basically controlling him. It was crazy to see. It was crazy to see that a powerful country like Germany has got such a weak leader like this guy. Merkel puts him to shame. I remember when Merkel was around, she was standing up to Trump and many of these ridiculous policies they were trying to place upon Germany at the time. She was standing up against it. I'm not saying she's perfect, I'm not saying she's perfect, but she was a hell of a lot better than this guy. That's all from me for today. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you in the next video. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Really helps the algorithm. Really appreciate you guys supporting me, and I'll see you soon. Take care.